On the morning of June 15, 2026, a B-52 bomber lifted off from Edwards Air Force Base, climbed for just seconds, and slammed back into the earth in a fireball. All 8 people aboard were killed. There were no survivors. This wasn't a combat mission. It wasn't a war. That bomber was in the air to test a brand new radar, part of a desperate, multi-billion-dollar effort to keep a 70-year-old aircraft flying for another 25 years. Think about that. The United States is pouring billions of dollars into a jet designed in the 1950s so that it can keep flying until 2050, by which point it will be nearly a century old. Why would anyone do that? Why not just build something new? The answer lies in one of the strangest machines in military history. A bomber so impossible to replace that every modern high-tech aircraft built to take its place has died before it. America built this bomber to last 20 years. It's now spending billions to keep it flying for 100. This is the B-52 Stratofortress, the plane that refuses to die, and what that stubbornness just cost. Let's start with what happened over the Mojave Desert. The aircraft was a B-52H that had served for decades. Witnesses watched it take off and almost immediately drop out of the sky, plunging at close to a mile a minute before it hit the runway and erupted into flames so fierce that barely any recognizable wreckage was left. On board were 8 people, active military, government civilians, and 2 employees from Boeing, all supporting the test. It was the first B-52 lost since 2016 and the deadliest since 1982. What caused it? Nobody yet knows. The Air Force has said the investigation could take up to 6 months, and investigators have been careful to make no assumptions. One safety expert suspected some kind of control or engine problem given how fast it went down. And the widow of one crew member said her husband had mentioned something was wrong with the plane days earlier. But these are early threads, not conclusions. It wasn't an enemy or a war that killed these 8 people. It was a routine flight to keep a 70-year-old aircraft alive. And to understand why that flight was happening at all, you have to understand a machine that simply will not die. The B-52 first flew in the 1950s at the dead center of the Cold War. It was designed to drop nuclear bombs on the Soviet Union, and the Air Force expected to fly it for maybe 20 years before something better came along. That was 7 decades ago. The pilots flying the B-52 today are often the grandchildren, sometimes the great-grandchildren, of the men who first took it into the sky. Around 75 of them are still in active service, and the Air Force has no intention of letting go. Why? Because for all its age, nothing has ever matched what the B-52 does cheaply. It is, in the bluntest terms, a flying truck. It can haul a staggering load of bombs and missiles, up to 70,000 pounds of ordnance, farther and for less money than almost anything else in the fleet. The B-52 didn't survive because it was advanced. It survived because it could carry more bombs, more cheaply, than anything ever built to replace it. But a 70-year-old airframe full of 1960s technology can't fight a modern war. So, America made an extraordinary gamble. Instead of replacing the B-52, the Air Force decided to rebuild it almost from the inside out and keep it flying into the 2050s. The project is enormous. The bomber's 8 original engines, designs dating back over half a century, are being swapped for modern Rolls-Royce F-130 engines, a program that recently cleared a major design milestone, with the first jets due to be modified later in 2026. Its ancient 1960s mechanical radar is being torn out and replaced with a cutting-edge electronically scanned array system. On top of that come new avionics, new digital cockpit displays, new communications, and new weapons. When it's all done, the upgraded bomber gets a new name, the B-52J. Rather than build something new, America chose to give a Cold War relic a new heart, new eyes, and a new brain, and bet billions that it would work. The plan is for this reborn B-52 to fly alongside the brand new stealth B-21 bomber for decades to come. But resurrecting a 70-year-old machine has not gone smoothly. Here's the uncomfortable part. The very upgrades meant to save the B-52 have been plagued with trouble. The new radar program ran into technical problems and cost overruns severe enough that, in 2025, a law was triggered requiring the Air Force to formally notify Congress about the spiraling expense. The delays pushed back the B-52's expected entry into service by 3 full years, and the Air Force was forced to scale back parts of the program just to keep it moving. Billions of dollars, years behind schedule, to modernize a single aging aircraft. And then came June 15th, when a bomber supporting that exact radar program fell out of the sky. Let me be clear and careful here. Investigators have not linked the crash to the radar work, the engines, or anything else. The cause is genuinely unknown, and may stay that way for months. But the program meant to save the B-52 had already run years late and billions over. And now the very effort to modernize it has turned deadly. So why push on? Why not finally let this old machine go? The answer is the most remarkable part of the whole story. Over the decades, America built newer, faster, more advanced bombers specifically meant to retire the B-52. And here's the twist that almost nobody believes. Those replacements are now being retired, while the B-52 keeps flying. The supersonic B-1 Lancer, a sleek, swing-wing machine far younger than the B-52. The B-2 Spirit, the bat-shaped stealth bomber that cost over $1 billion apiece. Both were, in their way, successors to the old stratofortress. And as the new B-21 stealth bomber comes online, the Air Force plans to retire the B-1 and the B-2, but keep the ancient B-52 in service. The B-52 has outlived nearly every bomber built to replace it. The supersonic B-1 and the stealth B-2 will be retired while the 70-year-old keeps on flying. It's a machine that has buried its own successors one after another, which raises a haunting question. Is the B-52 a miracle or a warning? If everything goes to plan, the B-52 will keep flying into the 2050s, making it the first combat aircraft in history to serve for very nearly 100 years. One basic design will have flown through the Cold War, through Vietnam, through the Gulf War, through Afghanistan, and into the conflicts of the 2020s. The same iron airframe, updated again and again, carried across a century of warfare. It is a staggering testament to how right the original engineers got it. If it works, the B-52 will become the first warplane in history to serve for 100 years, flown by the great-grandchildren of the men who first built it. But June's crash is a reminder that this longevity is not free. Every year an old airframe stays in the sky, it carries a quiet human cost. And on one June morning, that cost came due for 8 families. So that's the paradox of the B-52. A bomber built to last 20 years, still flying after 70, with billions being spent to push it toward 100. Its single greatest strength, that nothing can quite replace it, is exactly what keeps sending it back into the sky, decade after decade, long past the age any aircraft was ever meant to fly. And here's the lesson hidden inside it. The most valuable machine isn't always the newest or the most advanced. Sometimes it's the one that does its job so well, so cheaply, that the world simply refuses to let it go, whatever the cost of keeping it alive. As for that crash, the truth won't be known for months. 8 people died not in a war, but in the long, stubborn effort to keep a legend airborne. Next, we're telling the story of the bomber finally chosen to share its skies, the secretive, eye-wateringly expensive B-21 Raider. You won't want to miss it. Stick around.